Okay, last video for the year. I have a student that was finishing corrections and we ran out of time, so I'm gonna go over those real quick. X-intercept. X-intercept is when, not x, but y equals 0. So you simply put in 0 for the y, or if you have a finger, you cover it up. And so x equals 3y is gone, equals 3. So you don't put x equals 3, you only put the number. If you want to put more, it's an ordered pair. It'd be parentheses, your x is 3 and your y would be 0, close parentheses. Those are the only two ways to input your answer. Number 18. So, and this is going to be the same as the practice follow-up from my other student as their number 3. It's either going to be linear or exponential. So if it's linear, you're going to be adding and subtracting. If it's exponential, you're going to multiply. So, of course, 0, 1, 2, and 3, you're going up by 1. And so when you look at this, disregard the negative, because all of them are negative. So 3 times what is 9 times what is 27, and it has to be the same one. So times 3. So your exponential function formula is, we're doing f of x equals a times b raised to the x, where a is your initial and b is your rate. And it can also be, if you're given a percent, you're going to either add it or subtract it from 100 or 1. Okay, so we have our initial, which is the same as your y-intercept. That's your start. And so our y-intercept is -3. So f of x equals -3. And that's where the negative comes in, and we're multiplying times 3 raised to the x. So if I put this in y equals, my table should come up. 19. So the biggest mistakes that students make is they're trying to apply the 1/6 to the 64. If 64 was raised to the 1/6 power, it would say 64 to the 1/6. It does not. Okay, so in your calculator, type in 64 and to the 2/3 power, and you get an answer. So 64 raised to the 2/3, and it's 16. So it takes the cube root and then it squares it. So 16, and then your properties of exponents tell you when you have when an exponent is raised on the outside, you multiply. So 1 times 2 is 2, and 3 times 6 is 18. And so you end up with x 2 over 18, which reduces to 1 over 9. And again, to be able to reduce, and I'm going to go old school with the older calculator. You do second y equals, alpha y equals, and you get your fraction, and 2 over 18, enter, and it will reduce it for you. The newer calculators, you use alpha x. And write your answer in exponential form. So still is 16, so that's your answer. Number 20. So ace of 1, that means the first term. So the first term is 2, and you are subtracting 3. So multiplying times -3. So when you multiply times a negative, 2 times -3 is -6. Negative times negative is positive. So you end up with positive, negative, positive, negative. And so our answer is A. Okay. Next one. So same type of problem, except we're not multiplying. This is arithmetic. So ace of 1, that's your first term. Well, our first term is 2. So that eliminates B. And how do I go from 2 to 10? Well, 2 to 10, 2 times 5 is 10, but 5 times 10 is not 18. So 10 minus 2 is 8. So if I add 8 to 2, I get 10. And then 10 plus 8 is 18, and so on. So my answer is adding 8. And then a lot of times they'll ask you what would the next term be. So you would take 34 plus 8, and that would give you 42 if they did. Okay, number 2. The rules of exponents says when you multiply, you add your exponents. So you have 2 that are alike. 5 and x, your x is alike. So 5 minus 5 is 0. And anything to the 0 power, even if it's 2, whatever this is, to the 0 power, you get 1. So 5 to the 0 power, you get 1. So x to the 0 power, no matter what the number is, you get 1. So that means that x goes away. And all you're left with is your s. It has no friends, so it doesn't change. Okay, number 3. Again, you're looking to see if it's linear or exponential. So in this case, 1, 2, 4, and 8. So 1 minus 1 would give you -2, but -2 minus 1 does not give you -4. So we're not adding, so it's not linear. It is exponential. So you have f of x equals your a, which is your y-intercept, so that would be -1, and then what you are multiplying. And sorry about that, no parentheses. So -1, and then your rates, so 1. So disregard the negative. We took care of that with a -1. 1 times 2 would give you 2, and 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again would give you 8. So we're multiplying times 2 and raised to the x. So f of x equals. It also could be written as just -2 to the x. And then let's confirm y equals. Yay. Second table set, start at 0 and 1. And so at 1 or at 0, we have -1, then -2, 2 and -4. So our tables match, and both ways are correct on how to write the answer. There we go. Okay. Number 4. So when you're given the roots, so remember your root is opposite of your factors. So if these are both negative, your roots are both positive. So the only ones that are both positive are C and D. So to find your solution, you're setting these equal to 0. So if I have 6x plus 7 equals 0, opposite of adding 7 is subtracting. So that's how you get the negative, and then you would divide by 6. And so that happens to be that answer. And I'll go ahead and do the other side of it because I got lucky. 8x plus 3 equal to 0, opposite of adding 3. And let me make this not so big. There we go. Subtract 3, 8x equals -3, and then divide by 8. And you get -3/8. Alternative is let's graph. So if you were down to C and D and you were still debating parentheses, 6x plus 7, close it, 8x plus 3, and so 7, 6 is just going to be a little bit greater than, or past -1, just a little bit, and -3/8 is going to be almost half. And so let's go ahead and just graph one at a time since they're so close together. And if we wanted to focus, we would change our window, our x, we would look at, say, -2 to 0, because that's where our answer is. The y, you can leave it or change it, it's up to you. Okay, so I am about halfway and at a little bit past 1. So the other one, so it was 7x plus 6 and 3x plus 8 graph. And I am closer to 1 and the other answer is not even there. So if you're unsure, graph it and see if it crosses at those 2 points. And so zoom standard takes your window back to the standard. And so the other one, it crosses close to -1 and between 2 and -3. -2 and -3. Okay, number 5. Your first term is 972. So that eliminates D and A. And you're multiplying times -1/3. So when you multiply times a negative, you get positive, negative, positive, negative. So 972 times -1/3 is going to give you a negative number. And so basically when you multiply times -1/3, you are dividing by 3. But either way, your answer is B. Number 6. So ace of 1, that's your first term, is -2. And you're going to be multiplying. So your first term is -2. So, and you're multiplying times 3. So let's just put in A. So y equals and 3, because you're not given a list of numbers. If you're not given a list, then you need to put the equation in and get the list. And so let's just put in A for, and let's look at our table. Notice I did x minus 1 instead of n minus 1. And so our first term is 3. So this number was our first term. And is that the first term we're looking for? No, we're looking for -2. So obviously when you have 3 out front, which happens to be your y-intercept, is your first term. So we're going to get rid of C and A. Okay, so now let's look at the difference between B and D. So -2, that's good. And we're multiplying times 3. So my guess is going to be D. So let's look at it. So -2, let me just clear, -2, parentheses 3, because remember that's your rate. That's what you're multiplying by. Raised to the x minus 1. Let's look at our table. Our first term is -2, yay. And 2 times 3 is 6, times 3 again is -18, and so on. So D is our answer. And so 7 falls along in the same category. Your first term is 9. So again, we discovered that your first term is right here. So that one's the only one with +9. So let's put it in y equals and check. And see if we're right. But this one is not exponential. This one is linear. So let's see if it works the same. x minus 1 and minus 3. Okay, our first term is negative 3. It didn't work the same. So your first term again is your y-intercept. So on linear, you have y equals mx plus b. So your b is your y-intercept. So when this equals 1, this is going to equal 0. So we need negative 3. So that's going to be this one. No, I'm sorry. We needed 9. So it's not going to be A or C. It's going to be B or D. And the negative 3, notice this one, the first one, we are multiplying times 9. So I'm going up 9. So if we multiply times 3, we're going to be going up 3. And so let's put in D. And if you're unsure, put them all in. So negative 3, let me just clear it. Negative 3, open parentheses, x minus 1 plus 9. And looking at our table, our first term, 1, a sub 1 would be 9. And if we subtract 3, 9 minus 3 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 0. So that works. And so our answer is D. Find the zeros of the function. So the zeros of the function is where it crosses the x-axis. It's your solution. So you can graph it. You can factor it. Always start with graphing so you can be able to see your answers, see what they should be. So 6x squared, and sometimes you get lucky and they're whole numbers. 4x plus 1, graph. So it looks like x squared minus 4x plus 1 looks like it's above the line. Let's focus on that one. So window, because if it doesn't cross the x-axis, it doesn't have a solution. So to focus on that, it was just right about close to origin. So I'm going to change, I'm just going to do negative 2 and 2 and negative 2 and 2. And no, there is no solution. So there are no zeros. So, it probably says, let's look, yeah, just no zeros. Number 9. So this is our exponential function. So you have, let's see, f of x equals your a times your b raised to the x. And a is your starting point. So we're starting with 300 bunnies. And since that year, the number of bunnies in the forest has increased at a rate of 13%. So if you start with 100% and you are increasing 13%, you are going to get 113%. And so you have f of x equals 300 bunnies. And you're not going to multiply times 113. You're going to move the decimal over 2 places to the left and change it to change the percent to a decimal. Or take 113, divide by 100. So you get 1.13 and raised to the x. That's your function. And so when you're doing these, it's a good idea to put those in y equals to check your equation. You have 300, 1.13 raised to the x. So let's say we forgot and we didn't move the decimal. What would that look like? And the other common error would be to subtract instead of add. So let's do that. And so that would be 0.87 if you changed it to a decimal, raised to the x. Okay, again, we're starting with 300 bunnies and we are increasing 13% per year. So, of course, they all have 300. Now look at your if you didn't move the decimal, you have 33,000 bunnies. That's a lot. And then, of course, if you subtract it instead, you're going down instead of increasing. So the table gives you an idea if your equation makes sense. So be sure to put it in y equals, look at your table and check it. And if you're solving, graph it, look at what your answers should be. Make sure you have your signs correct. If both answers are on the negative side, then you need to have negative answers. Or you might have one of each. And then, of course, read your word problem. If your problem is length or width or a dimension, you're not going to have a negative number. So don't even look. Thank you so much.